All right, section 3. So this is about transportation, how it's affecting urban environmental situations. So cities can do one of two things. They can either grow outward or they can grow upward. And so those are based on a couple different things, but a lot of it's geographical in nature. So there are those cities that are compact, that grow upward. And that's cities like Hong Kong and China and Tokyo and Japan, because they have a limited amount of land around them. They can't go out. So as a result, they have dense development and high-rise buildings and mass transit to get people around, because it's the only way to function in those kind of cities. But in the United States, we have a tendency to create cities that are a little more dispersed. Now, this varies even too. New York City, for instance, isn't as dispersed as LA or Houston. But for the most part, ours can be dispersed a little bit further because we have plentiful land space, relatively speaking. We have cheap gas. And then we have a highway system that's quite developed. And these things allow us to spread out quite a bit more. So we have this urban sprawl as a result of those kind of things. And so in the United States, we have a very car-centered city system. We drive, even in those respects. In most respects, we're driving to and from work in big cities or in rural areas. And so just 4.6% of the world's population has cars and drives. The U.S. makes up a third of those, all by ourselves, so 33% of them, with only 4.6% of the population. So we're car-driving machines, and we drive passenger cars 98% of the time. So the vast majority of cars on the road are ones driven by people to and from work. So if Americans doubled their use of mass transit, so if twice as many people use mass transit as do right now, we'd go from 5% to 10%, right? This would reduce our dependence on oil by 40%. That's a huge difference, and it's something we should be aware of both from an economic point of view, but also from just a political point of view. So mass transit is an option that creates a more sustainable environment, can allow for urban growth in a way that doesn't harm the planet on the same level that car usage does. So what are the advantages to cars? Advantages: mobility and convenience. Because, if you want to go to the grocery store, you don't want to have to take the bus and then hop the bus and then walk. Just want to drive over there. Status symbol, that's big for some people. Got to look it, got to have the ride, got to have the wheels, got to have the boots, got to have the whole system. So, and then jobs. Providing cars is a real service. I mean, it gives tons of people jobs, from the car dealers to the people who repair the cars, to make the parts, to do the roads. It's a job-making machine. What are some bad things about cars? It's the largest source of air pollution in cities and in general. Accidents from them can lead to death and injury at much higher rates than mass transit. And they help encourage that suburban sprawl we just got in talking about. So, if we're going to solve the problem, part of it would be reduce automobile use, especially in big cities. And so, how do we do that? Well, we can do some full cost pricing on gasoline. I don't know if you guys know this, but gasoline is supplemented by our government. It's subsidized. They pay part of the cost of gasoline for us so that we don't have to feel it so much at the pump. So if they just got rid of that and we had to go and pay the actual $5 a gallon or $6 a gallon it cost, people would drive less. Put up toll roads, bridges, and tunnels that people would have to pay to utilize. Make parking fees higher. And then car sharing are all ways that we can help reduce the amount of driving that's happening on the streets. And then promote alternative things to cars, maybe bicycles, mass transit, buses, rapid rail, all that kind of stuff, to try to promote this kind of stuff. So trade-offs, and here are the advantages and disadvantages of a couple of those. Here's bicycles for you. So bicycles are affordable. They don't produce pollution. They're quiet. They require very little parking and taking care of. They're easy to maneuver in traffic, and they don't take very many resources. So those are good things about bikes. Problems? There's no real protection against accidents in them. If you're out in the weather, you're out in the weather. They're not good for long trips at all. They can be tiring, so you might want to go with an electric bike. Might be just don't like trying it. And then bike storage, of course. Mass transit has the same thing. It's a cost-benefit thing, so there's less injuries, there's less congestion, there's less land and road and parking and all that stuff that's needed. It takes less total energy and it creates less air pollution. They're expensive to build and maintain, though. So these are the disadvantages. They're cost-effective only in really dense population areas. You have to have people committed to certain schedules, so they have to change their habits, and they do create noise and stuff. Buses, some of the same kind of logic, and you can read through these as we go on, and they're in your book as well. And then rapid rail is the last one. These are those babies that will haul across long swaths of land. We don't have a lot of rapid rail well, we have none in the United States really, but they do have it in Japan. They have it in Europe. So you can reduce travel by car and plane this way because you're traveling far distances. These bad boys are ideal for longer trips of 120 to 620 miles, and they're more energy efficient per rider than a car or a plane. So they got that going for them. Disadvantages: they're really expensive to run and maintain, so you got to have a lot of people that are willing to take it. They have to work along heavily used routes, or they're not going to work. And they cause noise and vibration, bothersome things to people. So here are some things that we can move to as opposed to cars in urban areas to kind of offset some of the environmental issues with cars in these locations.